In this tutorial, we will learn how to initialize and start the Spring Dispatcher Servlet and how to configure its context as we create a simple Hello World using Spring MVC. This is the overview of the Dispatcher Servlet. The role is to serve as a front controller, and it receives and dispatches the HTTP requests. The configuration is using the WebApplicationContext, which manages web components like controllers and view resolvers. It initializes its context separately from the application root context. Here we look at the application context and hierarchy. At the top or at the bottom is the root application context, which manages all the application components. This is loaded through the ContextLoaderListener. Then one level up, we have the WebApplicationContext, which is a child of the root context, and this one manages web-specific components. We have our hierarchy relationship. The root context is the parent for all web application contexts, and this overall promotes a hierarchical structure for bean management. Beans from the root context can be accessed by all dispatcher servlets. Now we are going over to our course documentation. Scroll all the way down to our Spring Framework review, and we'll go to our Spring Dispatcher Servlet section. And in here we have a deeper dive and a good overview of the slideshow introduction. And then finally, get ready for actually implementing our Hello World from Spring MVC. We look at our example root application configuration class, and then we have our example web application configuration class. Root config represents the configuration for the root application context, managing general application components. Web config represents the configuration for the web application context associated with a dispatcher servlet handling web-related components. In summary, the dispatcher servlet and the application context work together to manage the web layer of a Spring application. The context hierarchy allows for the segregation of concerns between the core application components and the web-specific components, and we get modularity and maintainability. Now we are going over to Eclipse, and since we already covered this in our previous tutorial with the context application XML files, we won't repeat these steps. We'll just reference the existing README, how to create a new project, how to update the POM, and we'll create the Bootstrap class, which is the web application initializer, which looks like this. We create the root config and the servlet context configuration classes. Here is our root context configuration class. Here is our servlet context configuration class. Back to the README. We update our Maven dependencies, and we stick to what we used in our charity registration example. So we basically reuse everything as is except for the Spring MVC dependency. Back to the README, we update our web XML configuration. Here is our updated web XML. No more XML config references. Back to the README, we update the controller and the JSP. We have the Hello World controller, and in the Hello controller we have the annotation. We have a default mapping to return hello world from the Spring Web Application Initializer. Then we have a name mapping that calls the greeting service, and our greeting service will return hello name. Back to the README, we've updated the controller, and let's look at the JSP. We have the simple JSP fragment, all the JSTL tag libraries. So now we are ready to run and deploy it. We'll do run as, run on server, select one of our Tomcat apps, finish. And here is our world. And we can also now pass in a name string and hello your name. And that concludes this tutorial. I will see you in the next one.